Good morning, Year 4, and welcome to your English lesson this morning. Today we're carrying on with our writing to entertain, where we're writing our character description using the characterization that we planned out in our planning the other day. So, today we're going to do paragraph 2, and I'll read that paragraph to you again. The soldier slipped the straps over his lorica segmentata and casually dropped his scutum onto the mossy floor. Groaning like an old man, he slowly lifted his pilum above his head and aimed at the unaware creature. Using all his strength, the soldier launched the pilum through the air like an arrow before it crashed into the deer's flank. There was a brief gurgling scream as the animal fell dead on the forest floor. Pleased with himself, the slimness of smiles crept across the soldier's gaunt face. For a brief moment, the soldier considered clambering down the dell to collect the carcass and his pilum, but that seemed like too much effort. Picking up his kit, the soldier wandered off. So if you remember correctly, this is the paragraph where the big focus is on the character's actions. So it's the things he does that shows that he's lazy. So if you've picked a different characterization, what are they going to do in your characterization? But there's also some physical description in there as well. In today's lesson, we're going to start writing the second paragraph. This is quite a long paragraph, so we're going to start it today and finish it tomorrow. Okay, so let's look at the first sentence. The soldier slipped the straps over his lorica segmentata and casually dropped his scutum onto the mossy floor. The soldier wrenched the straps over his lorica segmentata and brandished his scutum in his hands. So obviously this is the same, almost the same. We're still talking about him having his lorica segmentata and then he's putting the straps over that to do something with his scutum. In the first one he's putting it on the ground because he doesn't want to carry it, and in this one he's brandishing it in his hand because he's about to attack the enemy. But obviously, I want to make this a bit better. So let's think about how some improvements I can make to make him sound a bit more brave in my sentence. So we've got the soldier here. I've got a lovely opportunity to put in an adjective to describe him. So I think to make him sound brave, I'm going to give him a deadly. So he is a deadly soldier. Wrenched the straps. Now we've got straps here. This is part of his scutum, so it's part of a description for him, so I can make this a bit more interesting to sound a bit more like as a big strong thing that he's carrying. So his straps on his scutum are going to be thick leather straps. This just extra bit of information just makes him sound a bit braver than he was before. Over his lorica segmentata. Now, I've already done a lot of describing about his lorica segmentata, so I want to add a bit more to it, but I'm going to use a word that's going to make him sound really strong and tough, and that is the word formidable. Okay, so thick leather straps over his formidable lorica segmentata. So this formidable meaning strong and dangerous type thing. Okay, moving on. And brandished his scutum. So remember, we don't know the word brandish before. It's where you hold something strongly and you shake it maybe at somebody. So I want to add a bit more to that. I'm going to put an adverb for how he brandished it. And putting in here, I think if you're going to be a hero and you're going to be brave and you're going to attack an enemy, you're going to want to aggressively. So he's going to aggressively brandish his scutum in his hands. Now, I don't want to add any more to the description to his scutum because I think I've already added enough. But his hands, here's a lovely opportunity to put a bit of information there to describe his hands. So I'm going to make his hands lethal, which means he can kill from them. So let's have a look at my sentence. The deadly soldier wrenched the thick leather straps over his formidable lorica segmentata and aggressively brandished his scutum in his lethal hands. Now, think about my success criteria. Does it make him physically sound like a brave character? He's deadly. He's got lethal. He sounds quite brave and scary in this one. What about his actions? He's wrenching the straps. He's brandished it. So the things he's doing make him sound brave as well. So I'm pretty happy with this. And I think I've got some really good vocabulary. So this is going to be my final sentence. So as before, I'm going to take my piece of work that I started in the previous lesson. I'm going to write this as a new paragraph. In the original text, the second sentence says, Groaning like an old man, he slowly lifted his pilum above his head and aimed at the unaware creature.
So he's attacking a deer. Mine's obviously not going to be attacking a deer. He's going to be attacking an enemy. So I came up with this sentence. Screaming like a wild animal, he raised his gladius above his head and ran towards the enemy. Now I think this is showing he's quite brave because he's running towards the enemy and he's screaming while he's doing it. He's not sneaking towards them. He's being big and loud. Obviously, we can do with making this sentence better as before. So I'm just going to add a few bits in here. Now, I like screaming, and I like the fact I've got my simile like a wild animal. But that wild animal, I think, could have a bit of extra description, would make him sound even more brave, even more deadly. So I'm going to have like a furious wild animal. Okay? So screaming like a furious wild animal, he raised his gladius. Now I can put a bit of description for his gladius here. I want him to sound brave and exciting, so therefore I'm going to make it a bit more exciting. I'm going to have his mighty, you can spell mighty, his mighty gladius above his head and ran towards the enemy. Now, the next thing I think I want to change is ran is quite a boring verb really. I'm going to get rid of that one and I'm going to have instead charged. I think that is a much better verb to use. But because I put a much better verb in there, I want to put an adverb to go with it. So I'm going to have charged frantically towards the enemy. And the last thing I want to do is I want to describe these enemies. So I'm actually going to put in here the unsuspecting. They don't know he's coming. The unsuspecting enemy. So let's have a look at that sentence. Screaming like a furious wild animal, he raised his mighty gladius above his head and charged frantically towards the unsuspecting enemy. So, brave through the way he's described. His gladius is mighty. So that's a bit of description there. Work through the actions he's doing. He's screaming like a furious wild animal. He's charging towards those enemy. I think it's making him sound pretty brave. Okay, so as before, I'm going to put this to one side and I'm going to get my book.
The third sentence says, using all of his strength, the soldier launched the pilum through the air like an arrow before it crashed into the deer's flank.
So from that sentence I created, using all his strength, the soldier sliced the blade through the air like a hammer before it crashed into the enemy's head. So notice I have replaced the pilum with his sword because I wanted to get up and close to the enemy, and the deer has been replaced with the enemy's head. But it's still the same thing. There's still a weapon striking whatever it is, and then the thing being squished and dead. So obviously looking at this, it's not a bad sentence at all, but obviously it can all be made better with my writing skills. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to look at the word strength here. Now obviously this describes my character, and in order to make him seem brave and heroic, I'm going to make his strength even greater. So I'm going to put in here as a description his considerable strength. If you've got a considerable strength, it means it's a lot of it, so a lot of strength. The soldier sliced the blade through the air. Now this obviously blade is his gladius. I didn't want to use the word gladius again, so I went with blade, but I think I could describe this blade. I don't want it to be like jagged or razor sharp or anything like that. I'm going to go with the blade being dangerous. Okay, having a dangerous blade makes him seem a bit more brave and heroic. Okay, through the air. Now again, the air is part of the setting description. I just want to add a bit more description to make it more interesting. So I'm going to have crisp air. Like a hammer before it crashed into the enemy's head. So again, crashed I think is a pretty good verb here. I'm hoping you're shouting better verbs at the camera at me, but I think I quite like crash. But again, an adverb to go with it. And I love this idea that this blade is coming chopping down. So I'm going to have it explosively. crashed down. So it's not just it crashed, it explosively crashed down into the enemy's head. Now I think there's a perfect opportunity here to describe this enemy. So I'm going to make this enemy terrified. I mean, why would you not be? Someone's just hitting you over the head with a sword. It's going to terrify most of you. And again, head. I think that could definitely be better. We know better. So I'm going to get rid of head and replace it with skull. Sounds much better, doesn't it? But then again, I could put an inscription word to go with this skull. I don't want this enemy to be wearing a helmet because I want their head to be completely sliced in half. So I'm going to have an unprotected skull. So obviously it's got no protection on it at all. So let's have a look at that sentence. Using all his considerable strength, the soldier sliced the dangerous blade through the crisp air like a hammer before it explosively crashed into the terrified enemy's unprotected skull. So thinking about my success criteria, I've given him considerable strength and a dangerous blade. So there I'm describing physical characteristics about this character to make him seem brave and heroic. He's also doing things like he's slicing the blade through the air like a hammer. So he's not just vague, he's not poking it weakly, he's really hitting it down and it's crashing into that unprotected skull. So I think my character seems pretty heroic in this. So as before, I'm now going to add this to my paragraph.
In the fourth sentence, the original said, there was a brief gurgling scream as the animal fell dead on the forest floor.
So from that sentence I made, there was a loud squelching sound as the unfortunate victim fell dead on the forest floor. So I'm going to try and make that sound better. I don't like this loud. I think I can do better than the word loud. So I'm going to replace that with the word deafening. Okay. It's not just a loud squelching sound, it's absolutely deafening. Okay, as the unfortunate victim fell, and again, that's not a particularly good verb, is it? So I'm going to replace fell with the verb toppled. Toppled, dead on the, I'm going to describe this forest floor, well, someone's just been stabbed. They've been hit in the head. There's going to be a blood-drenched forest floor. Okay, so I'm then going to take this as per usual and I'm going to write it up nice and neatly.
In the fifth sentence, it says, pleased with himself, the slimmest of smiles crept across the soldier's gaunt face.
So from that sentence, I wrote, pleased with himself, a broad smile spread across his handsome face. So it's still linked to the last sentence, but it's all about him now being happy rather than that thin smile because he's lazy, a broad smile because he's brave and heroic and pleased that he's just hacked someone in the head with a sword. So I want to make this a little bit better. I like this idea of the broad smile spread across his face, but I'm going to put a bit of a simile to go with it. So a broad smile spread across his, spread like wildfire across his handsome face. So like wildfire just tells you that it's very quickly spread across his face. I like the fact he's handsome. If he's a brave character, he's going to be handsome. But I don't want him to be like a Prince Charming type handsome with his wonderful, beautiful face and hair, beautifully coiffured hair. So I'm going to give him here, instead of just handsome, he is going to be ruggedly handsome. So a kind of a brave, strong character is handsome, but more of a warrior handsome than a Prince Charming handsome. Okay, so I don't think it needs a lot of changes to this one. I've described him, I made him seem pretty brave because he's smiling and he's ruggedly handsome. So I'm going to transfer this across to my paragraph.
So, you should now have the first 5 sentences of paragraph 2. Feel free to get a purple pen out or some other correction tool to make it better, and then we'll carry on with this tomorrow. I'm looking forward to see how you've got on today.